Hello brave newbies, my name's Master Technique and this is my Pyfa tutorial. We're going to start by launching the program. I already have it downloaded. It's a very simple process. Just Google Pyfa, P-Y-F-A, find the download for your operating system. It's a very straightforward install and launch it, and you should be looking at something like this. You're going to start by loading your character into the tool. So you're going to go up here to the character drop down, hit manage ESI characters. I'm already in here, but this would normally be blank. We're going to hit add character, and that'll launch the Eve single sign-on tool in a browser window. Log into that, find your character in the drop down and hit authorize. Once you've done that, that window will go away and you can close this. We're going to run through this using the newbro Atron fitting you can find on the Brave website, the Brave wiki. If you go to the military section of the wiki and go to the hanger list under newbie pilot, you will find the Atron Doctrine Tackle Alpha fit. So I'm going to be running this tutorial based on that fit and try and hit pretty much everything that you need to know in Pyfa using that fit. You might have questions, ask them in Dojo, ask them in Corporate Alliance, people can help you out. But we're going to go through the basics here, and it really should cover most of what you need to know to use Pyfa effectively. So over here in the fittings tab, you can see there's a market tab with everything you would see in the market in game that you can put on ships, but you're going to start in this fittings tab and you're going to pick a hull type. So we're going to go down to frigate. We're going to scroll down to the Galente hulls and find the Atron. Click on the plus sign. We're going to name it newbro and hit enter. That's going to bring up the Atron slot layout, and you're going to go back over to the market tab. So if you've gone through the new player tutorial, you know the very basics of what are the high slots, what are the medium slots, what are the low slots, what types of modules go in there. So assuming you already know all of that, we'll just start building this fit. So your market window over here obviously is going to emulate the market you have in game. You're going to start by dropping down ship equipment. You're going to go into turrets and launchers. I just like to start with the high slots and go into hybrid turrets based on the CPU and power grid requirements, which we'll see fill up over here as we fit things. Our basic fit uses the light ion blasters. So we're going to click on normal. When you first open these up, you'll see a whole lot of modules. You can see faction, you can see complex, whatever else. We're going to click on normal so we can just see all of the basic Tech 1 and Tech 2 stuff. And we're going to go to the light ion blaster 1. So for hybrids in particular, the lowest fitting requirement, lowest damage guns are the electron. So any electron blaster is going to be the smallest, the lowest fitting requirement. Ion is kind of the mid-level, and neutron is going to be the heavy hitter. That goes for the small, the medium, the large. They're all kind of this, they follow that same rule. So we're going to the small, which is the light ion blaster, and we're going to fit 3 of those. So I'm just going to double click on those. I could click and hold and drag them up here as well, but we're going to double click on those to fit them. And then we're going to single click on that guy there, shift click, and then right click on the group and bring up this menu and go to charge. And we're going to equip those guns with antimatter charge S for small. And now we can see what our optimal range is. It's going to be that 781 meters, and our fall off, which is at 3.75 kilometers. We're going to leave that last high slot empty. Once you get into toying with fits, you could look at putting an energy neutralizer in there, which is going to deplete enemy capacitor. You could look at putting a salvager up there if you want to be able to salvage from hulls on the field after people get blown up. It's a good way to make money as a newbro. Yeah, but for this really, really basic fit, we're going to leave that guy empty. So onto the medium slots. This is probably the most basic of fitting guidelines in the game. Is really for any PvP ship, you're going to want a propulsion mod, and you're going to want a tackle mod or two. And that's what we're going to do here. So the most basic propulsion mod that you can fit basically right out of the gate is going to be an afterburner. Micro warp drives are going to give you a lot more of a speed boost. Obviously, it's a 5 times multiplier to your propulsion, as opposed to the 2 times that you get from an afterburner. And in our official fit on the wiki, we're not using the 5MN micro drive 1, which is the most basic, where you're going to use the Y-T8. The benefit there is the lower fitting requirements. It's going to give you the same boost to speed that the most basic one will, but this one's a little easier to fit. And when I put a module on my ship, if I don't have the skills for it for some reason, this icon up here in the corner is going to turn red because I don't have the skills that I need for that module. If you want to know what your specific requirements are for a module, you can right click it, hit module stats, and go to the requirements, and you can see this is going to require navigation 1, afterburner 3, and navigation 3. And once you have those two, you can train up high speed maneuvering, and that's going to be your primary skill for micro warp drives. So assuming you've done that training, which would take, I don't know, a few hours, so really this should be a thing that you can get into pretty quickly. Although you have a lot to do in your first day or two, so maybe it isn't the very first thing you do, but assuming you've got that micro warp drive, that's going to go in your first mid slot. Now we're going to go out and go to electronic warfare, and we're going to fit those tackle mods that I talked about. So stasis webifiers are a module that can hit from 10 kilometers away, give or take, depending on bonuses and skills and things like that. The stasis webifier is just going to slow enemy ships down by quite a bit, 50%. Really important in any fight, really, to slow targets down. Guns have an easier time hitting when enemy ships are going slower based on their tracking speed. Turret tracking speed, the faster it can track, the faster of a ship it can hit. The slower that ship is going, the less tracking speed matters. So when you hit something with a stasis webifier, the bigger ships in your fleet are going to be able to apply more damage to that enemy ship that you are webbing. The other tackle mod that we're going to put on here is going to be a scram, a warp scrambler. So we're going to fit a warp scrambler 1. This module, the other, maybe the most important part of tackle, actually more than a webifier even, is making it so that an enemy ship cannot warp away. Warp scramblers and warp disruptors also, which you'll find over here. These two modules make it so that a ship cannot warp off grid unless they have modules sort of nullifying the effect of a scrambler or a disruptor. So when you go to module stats here, you'll see that this disables warp, disables their ability to jump a gate, it disables their ability to use micro warp drives as well. The warp disruptor will not do that, it'll only make it so that they cannot jump. The scram will make it so they can't do any of these things, which is huge. All they can do is slow boat around on grid. If they have an afterburner, they can use the afterburner. That's about the only propulsion module that they're going to be able to use if they have a scrambler on them. Applied to them, I mean. If you're shooting them with one, that's all they're going to be able to do. Okay, so that covers the mids. So propulsion module and a couple of tackle modules, which is the really most important, the most important contribution that this ship will make in most fleet engagements is going to be that tackle. You are going to be doing damage, but it's not going to be the most damage that you could be putting out if you were really fit for that or you were in a larger ship. Okay, so let's do the lows. Our newbro Atron fit is set up really just to help out with speed and tank. You can also use the low slots for damage mods, but again, because damage is not the primary purpose of the ship, we're not going to worry about those. So we're going to start with a damage control. This is probably the most basic tank module you can use. So we're going to go to hull and armor fittings, we're going to go to damage controls, and we're going to put a damage control 1 on there. That damage control 1 is going to increase all of your resistances across the board. It's 7.5% to each of your shield resistances, and then I believe it's an additional 10 to armor and 30 to structure. Yeah, so there's your 10 to each shield resist, 30 to your structure resists. Oh, sorry, it's 7.5 to your armor resists. The Tech 2 version is going to add more than that, obviously, but that's the most basic damage control, which is what we're going to put on here. You are also going to throw a reinforced bulkhead on this ship. Now, the reason for that is twofold. One, it is very easy to fit. Two, it is an increase in HP to your hull, which once you get it into larger ships and more advanced fits, hull tanking is not actually that common. But in a small ship like this, in a newbro ship like this, it's very easy to fit, both in terms of skill requirement and fitting constraint requirement, your CPU and power grid. And your hull resistances are the best resistances that you have on this ship. You aren't going to be active tanking, so you're not going to be using an armor repairer or a shield booster. You're just going to be passive tanking. So you have a certain amount of HP that an enemy would need to chew through to get you off the field, and passive hull tanking is going to be the best way for you to do that. So, all of that said, we're going to go into hull upgrades under hull and armor. We're going to go to small. Oh, sorry, I clicked on hull repairs somehow. Hull upgrades and reinforced bulkheads. And we're going to put a reinforced bulkhead 1 on there. It is a lot of CPU, but it's no power grid, or it's 1 power grid, so not a big deal there. And we have the CPU because of how we've fit out the rest of the ship to put that on there. The last thing that we're going to put on here is a propulsion mod. So we're going to go into propulsion where our micro warp drive was, and we're going to go to propulsion upgrades. So we're going to put an upgrade on called overdrive. The overdrive injector systems just increase base speed. So if I turn off my micro warp drive, my base speed on this ship can be found down here. It's 525 meters a second with my skills. I put that overdrive injector system on my last low slot. Now my base speed is 580. And that's huge because that's before multiplying it by 5 from my max speed with my micro warp drive on. So if I take that back off, run my micro warp drive, I'm looking at 3732. If I put that overdrive injector system back on there, turn my micro warp drive back on, now I'm looking at over 4,000 meters a second with my skills. So granted, I've been skilling for a while, and my navigation skills are pretty high, and so that'll be a little higher than it will be for you. But either way, this is going to be a quick ship, and that overdrive injector system is going to be a big part of that. The last thing for this fit is the rigs. And rigs are less important than the rest of the fit very early on. They require a separate set of skills, and rigs are tricky because they're a little more spendy, and they can't be unfit. So if you built this ship in EVE and didn't like something about it, if you had a lot of power grid and CPU left over and you thought you could fit neutron blasters, go for it. You can take off the ions. Rigs, you can't do that. Once they're on there, they're on there. If you want to put something else in there, you have to destroy the rig. So we're going to open up the rig menu. We're going to go to armor rigs. Armor rigs has the 1 rig you can fit for hull. We're going to go to small armor rigs. The rest of this really is for armor resistances. Nanopumps increase active armor amount. Accelerator increase your cycle time, decrease your cycle time. But this guy right here, transverse bulkhead, is going to increase your hull HP. So I'll switch this over to HP. So these are the actual numbers. EHP is your effective HP based on what damage you're taking, which it's approximating right there, and you can change those, but we're going to go to true HP. You have 575 hull HP right now, and we're going to put on 1, 2, three small transverse bulkheads, and now we're up to 994. So almost 1,000 hull HP. If I go back to effective HP, total effective HP is up over 3,500. You know, that's a far cry from what we started with. So this is a great rookie fit. You're going to last quite a while on grid as long as you keep moving, based on the transversal speed that you'll have compared to the guys that are trying to shoot you down. You have a lot of hull HP. It's going to take them a while to get through all of your HP. You are also completely cap stable. Looking over here at these stats in general on the right hand side, you can see we already talked about fitting. We didn't really talk about drones because this one can't fit drones, but that is pretty self-explanatory once you're running drones and you've used Pyfa a little bit. They can be found over here in the drones menu. Down here you have your armor stats, capacitor and armor recharge stats, your DPS, any remote repair effects you can apply to your ship if you want to simulate what that would look like. Your capacitor is right here, and so when I say cap stable, I'm talking about right here. It shows that you are stable at 48% capacitor. If I added an energy neutralizer, that might not be the case. We can go into ship equipment, go to engineering equipment, look at energy neutralizers, and put on a small neut. And now if we run everything, our capacitor completely runs out in 42 seconds. That's not ideal. If we cycle the neutralizer once in a while, then we can probably remain cap stable. We can also cycle the micro warp drive, and it lasts a little bit longer anyway, almost 2 minutes. But you can also just not fit one of these if you don't have the skills to fit it. And then you don't have to worry about running out of cap. Down here you'll see targeting and other miscellaneous skills. We talked about speed a bit already. You can see your align time, you can see your targeting range, things like that. And then down here, Pyfa is going to try and estimate what this ship will cost, which is an important thing to know if you're operating on a shoestring budget. So that's kind of it. There's other things you can tinker with, obviously. I really strongly encourage people to get in here and play with ship fittings, understand what the different modules do. It'll help you figure out what skills you might want to be working on. It will help you, figure out what is going to be bonus to the best based on the skills that you have, and what sort of applications you want to get into. Do you want to be hanging out in gate camps? Do you want to be flying our doctrine ships and seeing how well you can fly them based on the prescribed fits? Do you want to try solo PvP? It's a really useful tool, and it's just a great way to familiarize yourself with the ships and the modules in the game without having to sift through the in-game market tool or fit simulator, and obviously without having to buy things. So that's it. If you have questions, ask them in Dojo, ask your friends, ask in Fleet, but that's pretty much it. Fly safe, stay classy. Thanks.